Let's talk to Sir Iain Duncan Smith MP, former Conservative Party leader, of course. Sir Iain, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Morning, Mike.
There is a sense, is there not, in this country that there is unrest afoot. The government have said as much. They've said that they fear that the country's fraying at the edges. I think it's all their fault, by the way. And they say that the police say if there is a summer of unrest, they're not going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, there's no question this is the unhappiest I have seen, I think, the UK in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it's all coming to a head. Yes, the migrancy issue is a major, major cause of this. It's the illegal migrants, and even, it has to be said, the way that people that are in the legal queue are in now as well,
Right.
because there are question marks about what are the reasons for them being legal and not legal. So this idea here, the pictures that you show at the moment of what was going on up in Epping, where the police chief denied that any such thing of escorting these pro-migration people, who, by the way, I think are funded by the trade unions, I see.
So I understand, and Diane Abbott's affiliated to them in some way.
Yeah, so all of that, it did seem to me very strange that the head of the police, the borough one, doesn't know what his own police are doing. So who gave the order out for them to be escorted? What they should have been told is, go home, do not make the situation worse, and don't try and stir up trouble. I mean, the fact is, we don't want to have lots of riots on these streets, no matter what the frustrations of people think. But it has to be said, the policy of the government, when they came in, they poo-pooed the idea of the last government's plan to try and ship people to Rwanda on day one when they arrived, which would get rid of the pull factor. And they said, oh, no problem, we'll smash the gangs. Well, how's that going?
Right.
They're not smashing the gangs, because the gangs can never be smashed in this regard, because they're abroad, and as soon as you get rid of one lot, the other lot take their place. The thing that really draws people are prepared to get onto these boats paying thousands of pounds that they have saved up to get onto the boats. So as long as they believe that when they get over here, they will stay here, they will keep coming. That's the pull factor. And the whole nonsense of the Rwanda plan being struck down by the courts tells you very much that the European Convention of Human Rights is not fit for purpose anymore. And by the way, we're not the only country who thinks that. France is talking about that. Germany's fed up with it. Italy's been talking about it. The reality is that we need to rethink this, because what's going on at the moment is mass migration into the European countries, and particularly into the UK. And unless you change the rules so that governments who are meant to be protecting their shores and protecting people have the right to make decisions about not having them here, as Australia did, you will never get rid of this flow of migration, which is causing huge dissension and problems on the streets in the United Kingdom. So the cause is very clear, but the method of dealing with it by the Labour government is remiss. It's not working. It never will work. And that means the pressure's on the police. The police are torn in one direction, then the other. And the result is the public are taking it into their own hands. So all of this is a consequence of having no policy towards migration.
Exactly. And when it comes to the ECHR, I mean, I've said this for ages, that, you know, plenty of countries in Europe who are signed up to it pay sort of slightly less attention to it than we do. You know, we seem to have a sort of a phalanx of human rights lawyers who are guided not only by its recommendations, but by every single word that it utters. Whereas, you know, Denmark feel free to deport people. I think they've even deported people to Rwanda before now. Germany has deported a load of Afghan criminals that they don't want anymore back to Afghanistan. Poland has shut down its borders to any new migration at all, asylum seekers particularly. Greece has just set up a detention centre in Crete and said, if you come here illegally from North Africa, we will immediately detain you and arrest you, put you in a detention centre and then send you back. You know, so there's plenty of countries that are doing things that we're not doing, who are all supposedly still signed up to the ECHR.
Well, and the rules like right to a family life are very good when you're dealing with genuine migrants who are fleeing from persecution. But of course, this isn't always the case. And so the big problem we've got here is that the human rights law has led to a plethora of human rights lawyers who are basically taxi chasers, as it were, trying to get people to say, right, now you've got to sue the British government to stay here, and then they go through this prolonged process. Even if they do get sent away eventually, it's taken so long that the queue builds up. The answer for us, and I have to say the last government, I think, had the answer but didn't implement it in the end, is you have to say, which is every other country is talking about now and doing in many cases, these people have to be got away if they're going to be processed somewhere else, far away from the United Kingdom, so that processing of their credentials can take place without them literally having achieved their objective of just getting here. And just getting here is enough at the moment. And look at these pictures. How dangerous is it as well for them to be paying all this money and then to get into a flimsy rubber boat, overcrowded? And you've seen children die in the middle of the channel. We've seen adults get into real trouble on these boats. The wind gets up, the storm gets up, half the boat are going to perish. This is not the right way to deal with it. So smashing the gangs is a pipe dream, I'm afraid. The only way you can do this is to get rid of the pull factor and stop people thinking that if they get here, they will stay regardless. That's got to stop.
Yeah. But the trouble is, the reality is, if they do get here, they will stay, and that seems to be the sort of the model.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it happened more and more in recent years under the Tories. I mean, is there a chance that maybe the political establishment, and by that I mean, you know, both the Tories and the Labour Party, the former and the current government, get together and admit that putting these people up in hotels was a massive error, a massive mistake? It should never have happened.
It's been a disaster because the numbers have overwhelmed the last government and this government. And as I say, when you examine what's going on, you know full well these are not people that are, by the way, borrowing a boat and trying to sail across on their own accord. These are people paying very significant sums of money. They're not, you know, they're not down and out sitting in these places. They've got money. They must have money because they're not going to be taken by the gangs onto the boats. So they're paying very significant sums of money to risk the crossing of the channel because there's one thing they know will happen. When they arrive here, they will be given a place to stay, support, food, some money, and there's a very good chance that because they'll have stayed here so long, they will never go back. Now that is a prize worth having if you're desperate to get out of France. And that's where the problem arises. So I would love to see the Labour Party admit that whatever they're doing does not work, and what they've got to now is rethink it and go back to the plan that we had, and instead of opposing it like they did when they were in opposition, actually recognise, maybe with the odd tweak or two, this plan could really work and revitalise that deal. I see that America's been sending people over to Rwanda now, occupying property that we actually paid for and built. So we should actually do something about it. If Parliament was prepared to get rid of the pull factor, then I think we could all work together on it.
I mean, I think there's also an element of truth to the suggestion that some people come on the small boats in hock, for example, to the people smugglers, and when they get here, they then owe them 5,000 quid or something, and they get kind of enrolled in some kind of gang, whether it's a sex service gang, or whether it's a drug gang, or whether it's some kind of criminal operation, stealing phones or whatever. You know, I think there's a bit of that going on as well. So
there's no question there is, because when I was at the DWP, we broke up gangs that had brought people over to use their names to claim benefits.
Right.
They claimed benefits. They were sent into chain gangs, as we saw in the cockle pickers that were drowned up in the northwest a few years ago, or else they're into prostitution, into the sex trade, simply because they have nowhere else to go and their families are often threatened at home. That is a parallel line that is being used by these gangs. The main item is that people mostly pay for this, but yes, you're right. Some of them are promised that they'll be able to work and pay off their debts. But in fact, what happens is they don't get any of that money, and they go off into jobs that are pretty appalling.
Yeah, right. So what would you do with all the people who are basically here illegally? I mean, unfortunately, an awful lot of the Afghan contingent seem to be have come here under that new Afghan resettlement scheme. Many of them not actually really having credentials that said that they worked anywhere near the British Army, but just somehow got themselves on that secret list that was wrongly leaked. Can you deport these people, or are we stuck with them?
Well, I think that the rules should and can be very clear in this. And the reality is, somebody is here illegally, then they have to go.
Yeah.
The problem for us, that's not actually the ultimate issue, because the issue is so many are here that getting through all these cases, trying to deport them, becomes a problem. And then there's the deportation issue. The present government has no plans to deport anybody on the scale that we're talking about here. It would be huge. And they tried it, by the way, with Albania, didn't they? Keir Starmer goes down to Albania expecting to be able to agree with this sort of giant of a prime minister they've got a deal. And the prime minister at the press conference turns around and says, no, we've got no deal. We're not taking these people back, which made Keir Starmer look a bit foolish, really. Now, my point is, the real problem is the government came in thinking, the Labour Party came into government thinking this is all easy, it's just, chaos induced by the last government. Only to find now this has got even worse and they don't have a plan. Smashing the gangs was a rhetorical device to get them through the election. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. They need to rethink. And the rethink is you've got to get rid of the pull factor. And that pull factor is that if you arrive here, no matter what, even if you are illegal, you can stay. And that has to go.
That has to change. I understand you've been in Ukraine recently. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, I was with a charity that's taking medical aid out, and the vans, ex-farm pickup trucks, which are no longer wanted to be used by the farm. They need them at the front line because they have to get their casualties out quickly and back in. So these vans are used by the Ukrainian military, and the medical aid that we had packed in the back of the vans was vital for bandaging wounds and helping people survive gunshot and terrible drone attacks. So I, with about another 8 people, I think, drove about 6 or 7 trucks down across Europe all the way to Ukraine, and then dropped them off in Kyiv, where I met a few of the politicians, some of the committees, and some of the ministers concerned. I must say, things are pretty tight in Ukraine at the moment. Russians have been making advances. They're not massive advances, but there's a lot of casualties, and so the requirement for that medical aid was remarkable. And I thought maybe we should lead the way and try and help the charity concerned, which was Ukrainian Action, as other charities doing the same thing. But the British are peculiar in this regard. Ordinary British people have done this themselves. They've got up, they've found the trucks, they've organised to take them out there. They've raised money to pay for it. We are quite unique as a nation. When people genuinely need help, the British are there for them.
That's true. But a lot of people are now beginning to say, look, we haven't got any money. We're literally, up to our eyeballs in debt. We're paying we're borrowing, I think, £20 billion in June alone, pretty much 20 billion a month we're borrowing. Economists are telling me that we're heading for a serious, really, really major financial crisis if it carries on like this. And so people are beginning to say, can we really afford to continue to give billions and billions of pounds to Ukraine? And also, I was going to ask you if you encountered any of the demos that we're hearing about. We're hearing there are some demonstrations against Zelensky at the moment.
Yeah, I thought they were over-reported when I got back, because I was in Kyiv and I was in Lviv, where there were supposed to be huge demonstrations, and we were there and we didn't see the demonstrations. So I question really the scale of this. What's going on is a government attempting to try and find a way to get the process of chasing the corrupt individuals that run agencies or people that are taking backhanders, get them brought to justice and cleared out. I understand that. I think the timing of this is probably not helpful, because there are these organizations that are independent of government, and the government is saying we need to get hold of them so that we can chase, and others say, well, you're only trying to get hold of them so you can stop them going after government officials. It's a peculiarly, I think, misapplied process that when you're in there, you realize actually in trying to do this in the middle of the war, it's very, very difficult. That's one thing I think they should have tried to backload until they've got a peace deal. The big problem, though, is that the pressures in Ukraine are enormous, because so many of the young men are now at the front. The rate of death and the numbers that have killed is quite staggering, really. I mean, Russia still keeps going. They've lost over 1 million people in casualties, but they keep on throwing people at the guns. So all of this puts huge pressures internally on people living there. Their wives, their daughters, their children and their sons are all caught up in this war. So tensions are running high. I hope that the government takes a pace back in Ukraine and says, do you know what, this is something we'll have to put back on the back burner until we've got ourselves free of this, and we'll stay with the systems we've got, but make sure they do a bit of a better job. Sure.
Iain Duncan Smith, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Former Conservative Party leader there, talking about a great many things, including, of course, the state of play right here in this country.